Okay, so the units of measurements. So we are going to have lots of measurements in this course, and we have to talk about the units and the measurements. So the units are very important, and that gives the meaning to the number. So if you see, for example, 75, and if you don't have any unit, it you cannot guess if it's I don't know if it's temperature or if it's length or what. But if I say 75 degrees Fahrenheit, it's temperature, okay? Or if I say it's 75 inches, it's a length, okay? So units are important, and we are going to talk about SI units in this video. And SI units are international system units, and they're based on metric system. So for this video, we're going to talk about mass, weight, and volume. We have SI base units, so these 7 here are the base units. We also have other units that are derived from these units, like you don't see volume, for example, in this list. But these 7 are the base units. So you probably are familiar with length and time. So any kind of length you see in any formula or any measurement, the SI unit is meter, and time is of course with seconds. So we abbreviate meter with M and second with S. We have mass that we're going to talk about. Electrical current, we're not going to talk about this in this one, not until general chemistry 2. Temperature is another SI base unit, and the symbol is Kelvin. We're going to talk more about temperature in the next video. You probably heard about Fahrenheit or even degrees Celsius for the units for temperature, but the SI unit is Kelvin, and we are going to talk more about how to convert between these units in the next video. The amount of substance, mole, is one of the most important ones in chemistry, and we have a whole video about this that we're going to talk about it later. And for abbreviating mole, you just drop E and you write it as mole. And candela, we're not going to talk about this in general chemistry. So now that you saw the SI base units, we have to know some prefixes. So sometimes the number is too big or too small. That makes it hard to write it. So they use some prefix. So if the number is too large, as you can see from here to the top, it's for large numbers like kilo, mega, giga, and tera. And so it makes it easier for you to see if all of them have like 3 difference. So it's 12, 9, 6, and 9. 6 and 3. And I think maybe the technology makes it easier to memorize, because you've definitely heard about megabytes, gigabytes, and terabytes. So that might help you memorizing these. But the most common ones that we're going to use a lot are kilo, deci, centi, milli, micro, and sometimes nano. So these are the common ones, and you're definitely going to memorize it because you use it a lot. So if the number is too small, you use these numbers, okay, these prefixes. So deci is 10 to negative 1, centi is negative 2, milli is negative 3, and then the rest of them goes up with 3, 10 to the 3 magnitude. So it's 3, 6, 9, and 12. Milli, micro, nano, and pico. So one of the things I want to spend some time to talk about it is the example. So 1 terameter is 1 times 10 to 12 meters. So we want to take some time and talk about this. Okay, so let's talk about milli. Okay, so milli. So we know milli is 10 to negative 3, right? So there are different ways to write this, but sometimes it makes me confused. So we have to have a standard way of writing this, not to mix up, okay? So we know that 1 millimeter, let's take meter for example, is 10 to negative 3 meter. Or sometimes they write it 1000 millimeter is 1 meter, okay? But if you want to write it this way, sometimes it might be confusing that, well, maybe you're familiar with milli and you don't confuse this, but when you're going to use other prefixes, you mix up if it's like, I don't know, it's 10 to negative 6 meter is 1 micrometer, or 10 to negative 6 micrometer is 1 meter, okay? You're going to mix up. So we're going to have a standard way to do this. So whenever you want to use the prefixes, each prefix has a meaning, right? So milli means 10 to negative 3. So always use 1 with the prefix, okay? So we say 1 millimeter equal the meaning of the prefix, which is 10 to the negative 3, goes to the base unit. So 1 millimeter is 10 to negative 3 meter. Okay, so let's try this with kilo, for example. So kilo, it means 10 to the 3, right? So if you want to convert kilometer to meter, okay, so always 1 goes with the meaning, with the prefix. So we say 1 kilometer equals the meaning of the prefix and the base unit, meter, okay? Let's see how micro is. Micro, and we show it with these, okay? And micro means 10 to negative 6. So always 1 with the prefix micrometer equals the meaning of the prefix 10 to negative 6 meter, okay? So this way you never mix up, and you're always sure about your conversion. Okay, so let's talk about some of these quantities. So mass. Mass is the measure of the quantity of the matter. It just tells you how much matter you have. The SI unit for mass is kilogram, which is weird because we usually use the base unit as gram. But since in most of the areas of science, gram is a pretty small unit, so they use kilogram. In chemistry, we like to use grams, and to convert that, so let's use the method we just talked about. So we always use 1 with prefix kilogram, and kilo is 10 to the 3, so it's 1 kilogram is 10 to the 3 gram, which is basically 1000 gram. So that's mass. So mass is the amount of the matter, okay? We usually use weight and mass interchangeably, but actually they're different. So weight is the force that gravity exerts on the object, okay? On the planet Earth, it's the same. We get the weight by multiplying mass by a constant, and on planet Earth, the constant is 1, so basically the mass and the weight is the same thing. But if you go to the moon, for example, the sea is different, so you might have a different weight, but the mass is still the same. So mass gives you the quantity of the matter. So 1 kilogram is 1 kilogram as the mass, but the weight is the force. So 1 kilogram bar will weigh 1 kilogram on Earth, but 0.1 kilogram on moon. So volume, as we said in the second slide, volume was not on the list of SI base units because it's a SI derived unit. And what is the SI unit for volume? So, volume of a cube is length times width times height, right? And all of these three are length or is a distance. So the unit for each of them, what is the SI unit for length? Is meter, the width is meter, and height is meter. So the unit for volume will be cubic meter. So the SI derived unit for volume is cubic meter. But cubic meter is a very large unit, and sometimes we use cubic centimeter. To convert cubic centimeter to cubic meter, it's 10 to negative 6, but how do we get it? So let's say I prefer to write it this way. So we know 1 centimeter, we talked about this, is 10 to negative 2 meter, okay? So it's cubic centimeter. So if we cube, let's do this. So if we cube the whole thing, the cube goes to every single one of these. So yeah, 1 cube, centimeter cubed, 10 to negative 2 cubed, and meter cubed. So 1 cubed is 1. So 1 cubic centimeter is 10 to negative 2 cubed is 10 to negative 6 and cubic meter. So 1 cubic centimeter is 10 to negative 6 cubic meter. So that's how we can convert cubes, or sometimes we are going to talk about area. So you have square. So if you know the equality for the base unit, like centimeter to meter, then you can cube it or you can square it and then get the equality that can convert cubic centimeter or square centimeter to cubic meter or cubic or square meter. But in chemistry, we have other units for volume, and liter is the most famous unit for volume in chemistry. We also have milliliter. So we know that 1 milliliter, milli is the prefix and it means 10 to negative 3. So it's 10 to negative 3 liter, or 1 liter is 1000 milliliter. And 1000 milliliter is 1000 cubic centimeter. And we can then relate it to cubic decimeter or cubic meter. But the equality that helps me to going from liter word to length cube word is this. So I know that 1 milliliter is 1 cubic centimeter. That's the most important equality for the volume for chemistry word into SI word. So liter is not SI unit. So what is the SI unit for volume? It is cubic meter.